I got worried, that's when you called the police. I drove here. First everything looked normal, except they weren't here, that's when I knew something was wrong. David would never miss golf without telling me. Never. He paused, staring at the ocean. The police said to wait 24 hours, but I insisted. Good thing to that storm came in Sunday night. Janine joined him at the railing. I found Meredith's journal. She wrote about planning to announce the pregnancy at that dinner. She hoped it would help smooth things over between you and David. About the business expansion. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. What do you mean? She wrote about arguments, disagreements, about taking on debt for international expansion. He shook his head slowly. Meredith never told me about any pregnancy. God, what a tragedy. The baby, to his voice caught. If I'd known, if she'd told me that night. Something in his phrasing made Janine pause, but she couldn't identify what felt off. The emotion seemed real, the regret genuine. I'm sorry. Marcus continued, this must be incredibly difficult for you. Is there anything I can do, any way I can help? I don't know yet. I'm still processing. I want you to know, he said, turning to face her fully. I've tried to honor their memory. The business is thriving. We did expand internationally, just like we'd planned, but I've never forgotten that it was built on David's foundation too. I even established the Meredith and David Foundation. It provides scholarships for young entrepreneurs. That's very generous. It's what they would have wanted. He checked his phone. Listen, I'm in town all week for meetings. If you need anything, someone to talk to, help with arrangements, anything at all, please call me. Harold has my number. As he moved toward the door, Janine found herself studying him, the successful businessman, the grieving friend, the keeper of that memory. All the pieces fit, and yet something nagged at her, some instinct she couldn't name. Thank you, Marcus, for everything you've done here. He paused in the doorway. They were family to me. It's the least I could do. After his Tesla disappeared down the coastal road, Janine remained on the deck, watching the waves crash against the rocks where her sister had loved to walk. Marcus Ashford had given all the right answers, shown all the appropriate emotions. So why did she feel like she'd just watched a performance? The marina stretched before Janine, in a forest of masts and rigging, the afternoon sun glinting off the water between the boat slips. She needed to clear her head after the unsettling encounter with Marcus, to process everything she'd learned. The familiar scent of salt water and diesel fuel brought back summers spent here with Meredith, learning to sail in their father's little Catalina. She walked past the harbour master's office, toward the public pier, where tourists fed seagulls and fishermen tried their luck. The yacht club restaurant sat at the pier's end, its blue and white awnings fluttering in the breeze through the windows. She could see servers setting up for the dinner service. Excuse me, Miss Janine. A woman had emerged from the restaurant's side entrance, wearing the black pants and white shirt of the waitstaff. She was in her 50s, with greying hair pulled back in a tight bun and nervous eyes that kept darting around the parking lot. Yes. I'm Alina Harold's wife. The woman stepped closer, lowering her voice. I heard you were in town, Harold told me at lunch. I've wanted to talk to someone for years, but Harold, he forbade it, said it wasn't our business. Talk about what? Elena glanced around again, then pulled Janine behind a boat trailer, out of sight from the road. That night, the night your sister disappeared, I was closing up the restaurant. We'd had a wedding reception that ran late. It must have been near 2 o'clock in the morning when I was walking to my car. Janine's pulse quickened. What did you see? Mr. Ashford's boat, that big cabin cruiser of his. I saw it leaving the private dock near your sister's beach house. The running lights were on, and I could see someone at the helm. It struck me as strange. You know why strange? Because earlier that evening, around 9:30, Mr. Ashford had come into the restaurant bar, had a whiskey, complained to the bartender That David and Meredith had stood him up for dinner, said he'd waited, but they must have gone out. But then there was his boat leaving their dock at 2 o'clock in the morning. Janine felt a chill despite the warm afternoon. Did you tell anyone? Face crumpled. I wanted to. When the police were investigating, I wanted to say something. But Harold, she glanced toward the parking lot again. Mr. Ashford pays Harold's salary, has for years. He's been good to us, helped when Harold needed surgery, gave us loans when times were tough, Harold said. I must have been mistaken that it was dark. Could have been any boat. But you're sure it was his? I know boats. Miss Janine, my father was a fisherman. That was Mr. Ashford's sea. No question, the way it sits in the water, that distinctive blue stripe. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. But what could I say? That I saw his boat out late. Maybe he went night fishing, maybe he came back to check on them, Harold said. If I made trouble for Mr. Ashford with no proof of anything wrong, we'd lose everything. A truck rumbled into the parking lot, and Elena's face went white. That's Harold, I have to go. Please don't tell him I spoke to you. He's a good man, just protective of our security. She hurried back toward the restaurant, disappearing inside. Just as Harold's pickup parked near the marina office, Janine stood frozen behind the boat trailer, mind racing. Marcus had lied about leaving at 9 o'clock. He'd been at the beach house dock at 2 o'clock in the morning, hours after Meredith and David had supposedly vanished. Before she could second-guess herself, Janine got in her car and drove the short distance to Canary Row. Marcus had mentioned his boathouse there during one of their past conversations, back when he and Davy were planning to buy a bigger boat for client entertainment. The historic waterfront had been transformed from Steinbeck's sardine factories into tourist shops and restaurants. But some working boaters remained at the far end. She found Marcus Isley, a newer structure with Ashford Marine painted on a discreet sign. The main doors were closed, but a side entrance stood slightly ajar. Janine pushed it open, calling out Marcus, "Hello." The interior was shadowy, lit by windows high on the walls. The space was organized, and clean tool racks along one wall, boat parts stored on shelves. A workbench with maintenance equipment. His cabin cruiser wasn't. They're likely moored at the marina. In the corner she noticed a stack of industrial tarps, the heavy-duty kind used in construction. Several gallon containers lined the shelf above them, their labels faded, but the bleach smell unmistakable, even from across the room. Her stomach tightened. Janine, she spun around. Marcus stood in the doorway she'd entered through, looking puzzled but not alarmed. "I'm sorry," she stammered. "The door was open and I thought I wanted to thank you again for maintaining the house." He smiled, moving past her to flip on the overhead lights. "No need to apologize. I should keep that door locked. But the maintenance guys are in and out all day." He noticed her looking at the tarps and cleaning supplies. "Impressive collection, isn't it? Boat maintenance is messier than most people realize. Those tarps look industrial strength." "Have to be." He walked over and lifted a corner of one, showing its thickness when you're cleaning fish or working on the hull. "Regular tarps won't cut it. Bloodfish, guts, bottom paint, it all soaks through normal material. These protect the deck and dock and the bleach." He laughed, a natural sound that made her feel foolish for her suspicions. The eternal battle against fish, smell, and mildew. You go out fishing, bring back your catch, and if you don't sanitize everything immediately, your boat smells like a fish market. For weeks I learned that the hard way. He gestured to a corner where fishing rods stood in a rack, tackle boxes neatly arranged below. "I've gotten more into deep-sea fishing since David's been gone. He always wanted to go after the big ones, marlin, tuna. I do it now, kind of in his memory." "That's nice," Janine managed, feeling increasingly uncomfortable about snooping. "In fact," Marcus said, his face brightening, "why don't you come out with me tomorrow? The weather's supposed to be perfect, and I could use the company. We could talk about Meredith and David." Share some good memories sometimes. Being on the water helps. I'll think about it. No pressure, but the offer stands. He glanced at his watch. I've got a conference call in 20 minutes. But please feel free to look around if you want. Just pull the door shut when you leave. After he left, Janine stood in the boathouse, trying to reconcile what she'd learned. Alina had seen his boat at 2 o'clock in the morning, but here was evidence of an avid fisherman who would have legitimate reasons for night boating. For heavy tarps and industrial cleaners, every suspicious element had a reasonable explanation. She pulled the door closed behind her and walked back to her car, more confused than ever. Was she so desperate for answers that she was seeing sinister motives where none existed? Or was Marcus Sashford exactly what he appeared to be, a successful man who'd lost his best friend and business partner, now trying to honor their memory while pursuing the hobbies they'd shared? The questions followed her as she drove back to her hotel, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across Monterey Bay. Marcus moved toward the boathouse door, then paused, turning back to Janine. With sudden energy, you know what, the weather's perfect right now, calm, sees good visibility. Why don't we go out to where they found the phone? Maybe we'll spot something else the diver missed now. Janine glanced toward the harbor where boats bob gently in their slips. Why not? I've got all my diving equipment here, and the afternoon light is ideal for underwater visibility. I can dive while you operate the boats. You still have your license, right, from all those summers your dad taught you and Meredith to sail? Yes, but I haven't been on the water in years. It's like riding a bike. The Sea Ray practically drives herself. His enthusiasm seemed genuine, almost boyish. Look, I need this. To Janine, David was my best friend, my brother in everything but blood. If there's any chance of finding more clues, or even— he paused, swallowing hard— even finding them, bringing them home properly, I have to try. The raw emotion in his voice dissolved her hesitation. Okay, yes, let's go. Fantastic. I'll grab the diving gear. The boat's in slip 47, just down from the yacht club. I have some documents in my car, Janine said, remembering the folder she'd impulsively grabbed from the beach house's home office. Papers from the house I haven't looked through yet. Mind if I bring them? Of course not. Take your time. Janine retrieved her tote bag from the car, stuffing the manila folder inside, along with her water bottle and jacket. The late afternoon sun warmed her shoulders as she walked to the marina, trying to calm the mixture of anticipation and unease churning in her stomach. Marcus' boat was impressive, a 32 FT Sea Ray cabin cruiser with a flying bridge, pristine, white hull accented with that distinctive blue stripe. Alina had mentioned he was already aboard, organizing diving equipment on the aft deck. Welcome aboard the second chance, he called out, offering his hand to help her onto the boat. David helped me name her, said everyone deserves a second chance at their dreams. The irony wasn't lost on Janine as she settled her tote bag in the cabin and familiarized herself with the controls. Marcus efficiently prepared for departure, his movements practiced and confident. Within minutes they were motoring out of the harbor, the marina falling away behind them. The coordinates are already in the GPS, Marcus said, pointing to the navigation screen about a mile offshore near Pescadero Point. Can you take the helm while I get the diving gear ready? Janine took the wheel, the familiar feel of a boat responding to her touch, bringing back bittersweet memories. The ocean was indeed calm, with gentle swells that the sea cut through effortlessly. Marcus busied himself with tanks and regulators, occasionally calling out course corrections. Mind taking over for a few minutes? Janine asked when they were halfway to their destination. I want to look through those papers while we have good light. Sure thing, take your time. She descended into the cabin, grateful for its spacious interior. The documents had shifted in her bag during the walk, and she carefully spread them on the navigation table. Most were routine utility bills, property tax statements, insurance, paperwork, but near the bottom she found a bound proposal with the Innovate Tech logo on the cover. Strategic Expansion Initiative was emblazoned across the front, dated just 3 weeks before Meredith and David disappeared. Janine opened it. Scam is impossible without sacrificing quality. The financial projections made her stomach drop. 3 million in liquid capital required within 6 months just for the London office, another 5 million for Asia-Pacific operations within the year. The risks were enormous, the kind that could destroy a company if even one market failed to materialize. But it was the final page that made her hands shake. The proposed ownership restructuring. Accountant's mind reel as she turned pages. She found David's handwriting in the margins. His neat script showed increasing alarm with each section too aggressive for current, was stark in its implications if Marcus provided the expansion capital. His ownership would increase from 50% to 70%. David would become a minority partner in the company he'd co-founded. More notes in David's writing filled the margins. Not what we agreed. Need to think about the future, can't risk everything now. And finally, at the bottom, timelining the executive summary. The scope was breathtaking. Offices in London, Tokyo, Singapore, and Sao Paulo within 18 months. Projected revenues. There seemed fantastical. Infrastructure investments that made her cash flow. What about our existing clients? Circled twice. Family comes first. Janine sank onto the cabin bench, papers trembling in her grip. David had been ready to walk away from Marcus' grand ambitions, and if Meredith had announced her pregnancy that night, it would have cemented his decision. Their child would have been David's family first priority, the final reason to choose stability over Marcus. Risky expansion for Marcus. It would have meant the destruction of everything he'd worked toward. His vision for Innovate Tech's future, his dreams of building a global empire, all crumbling because his partner chose fatherhood over ambition. Everything okay down there? Marcus called from above. Fine, Janine managed, hastily gathering the papers, just finishing up. She stuffed the documents back into her bag, trying to steady her breathing. Was she really considering that Marcus, David's best friend, the man maintaining their memory, could have harmed them? The evidence was circumstantial, at best. A boat seen late at night, business disagreements, financial pressures, but the coincidences were stacking up like storm clouds on the horizon. Marcus had lied about when he left. He had the means, abode, those industrial tarps, the bleach. He had the motive, millions of dollars and his life's ambition at stake, and he had the opportunity. Trusted access to the house, to David and Meredith. Janine climbed back to the deck, forcing herself to appear calm. Marcus stood at the helm, the diving site approaching on the GPS. Find anything interesting? He asked, glancing back at her just old bills and insurance papers. She lied, taking her position near the controls. The water looks perfect, he said, already reaching for his weight suit. With any luck, we might find something that brings you closure. As he suited up, Janine gripped the wheel and stared at the ocean that had supposedly claimed her. Sister, the man preparing to dive into these waters was either a grieving friend trying to help, or something far more sinister, the terrible uncertainty of not knowing, which made her feel more alone than she'd ever been. Even surrounded by the vast Pacific, she thought of Meredith's journal, of her sister's hope that a baby announcement would heal the rift between partners. Instead, had it sealed their fate? The questions circled like the seabirds overhead, offering no answers, only the growing weight of suspicion that pressed against her chest. Like the ocean depths below, the GPS beeped, indicating they'd reached the coordinates. Marcus cut the engine and moved to the bow to deploy the anchor. The boat settled into a gentle roll with the swells, approximately a mile offshore, where the water shifted from coastal green to deeper blue, perfect conditions. Marcus said, returning to the diving platform, he pulled his weight suit from the gear bag, shaking it out. Visibility should be at least 40 feet down there. Janine watched him prepare, her nerves stretched taut. The business documents weighed on her mind like the anchor holding them in place. She needed to know, needed to probe carefully. I did find something interesting in those papers, she said, keeping her tone conversational. Some business documents, expansion plans for Innovate Tech. Marcus's hands stilled on the weights suit zipper. The change was instant and complete. The warm, helpful friend vanished like fog burning off in sunlight. When he turned to face her, his eyes had gone cold and flat. You couldn't leave it alone. His voice was quiet, almost sad. I don't know what you mean. Janine tried to maintain an expression of innocent confusion, but her heart hammered against her ribs. He stepped away from the diving gear, studying her with the calculating gaze of a predator, recognizing. Pray, I can see it in your eyes. Janine, you figured it out. The way you've been looking at me since you came back up from the cabin, the way your hands are shaking right now. She instinctively backed toward the radio mounted near the helm. Marcus moved faster than she expected, crossing the deck in 2 strides and ripping the radio handset from its mount with practiced efficiency. He yanked out the connecting wires, rendering the communication system useless. That won't be necessary, he said, tossing the damaged equipment overboard. From the diving bag he produced something that made Janine's blood turn ice cold, a compact pistol that he handled with disturbing familiarity. Sit down, he gestured to the bench seat. Hands where I can see them. Janine's mind raced through options. They were a mile from shore, no radio. No one knew she was out here with him. As she moved to comply, she slipped her hand into her jacket pocket, finding her phone, while keeping her other hand visible and her body language submissive. She felt for the side button combination that would trigger the emergency.